I write a song because something happened, and
you can write songs like that may end up on the radio because they're catchy, and the song is going to be called like "I Want to Drink You Like a Coca-Cola," and like you bubble inside of me and you make me tingle, and you're always cool on a hot day, and you know how to get me excited, and you know, but and that can make it on the radio. But I know what you mean, like you can never just sit down and be like, I'm going to write a song right now. I can't.
But it's cool if you get a title, like what happened with that title in Collapsible Plans is then I started thinking of what that might mean to me. So I started from a lyrical standpoint, and I saw like this suitcase in the hallway that my wife's mother's husband had, and he has died since, and basically that was the last suitcase he owned, and his name tag was still on it. Wow. And I was just like, wow, if that's not a collapsible plan, like there was a lot of plans involved in that suitcase, so like that just triggered like that whole rush. Then so that brought about a lot of the stuff, and then I started this John Lennon thing, which you know about, is like, okay, there's another collapsible plan here. He's like coming out, he's like signing an autograph. Right. Like, wow, that's
he's
like a
right
plan.
Out in front of his house.
That plan didn't happen. Like he was just he was about to go in and like probably watch The Late Show or something with his wife. He got
shot. Yeah, right.
Going to see his kid, maybe kiss his kid before he calls it a night. I mean, so I like there's like an it was interesting just to get back to songwriting. It's like, wow, a title and then what it might mean, and then sort of, and then it's a real stream of consciousness, right? We go through, like, we start with one idea, other things pop in, and it becomes a cumulative story, right? It's like a story that you bring in from different aspects that you got rolling, you know?
But really what the song is and what the imagery is, I mean, you can never fully capture a moment in time. It happens and it's gone forever. Yeah. And it's like a photograph. Like, you know, you have a photograph to remind you of the moment, but you can't capture a real life 3-dimensional moment. And that's what a song is.
Songs are pretty good, right? You can really get it.
Like that suitcase. Okay, so here you have the suitcase that is just one tiny little aspect of that man's life. And it was an aspect of traveling. It was like one little part of him in his travels and where he's going. But that's just one little extension. That has nothing to do with the whole rest of his life. Maybe it has something to do with it, but that's just one little piece. Like, it's like a flower. Like if you take a flower and you cut it off the bush and you put it in a jar with water, and someone walks up and says, "That's a beautiful flower." You're like, "Yes, you're right. That is a flower." But it isn't really a flower. It's just a piece of a flower bush that's now in a jar. If it was really a flower, it would be connected to the earth. It would have water going through it. It would be connected to the plant. That's what a flower is.
It would still have the potential to grow.
It have the potential to grow, the potential to close up, wither, die, the potential to scatter its seeds and create new. What it really is this fraction of a flower that's slowly dying in a jar. But it's all beautiful. We call it a flower because it makes us feel like all these other things. And we see it and we think flower. And it brings up all this other stuff. And that's what writing a song is. You're taking a moment. You're taking a piece of something. Yeah. Like, you know, John Lennon, perfect example. Like, he was, you know, a confused, privileged kid who's had troubled family life, who's an artist, tortured, went into becoming a member of the biggest rock band, most influential band ever, probably.
And then trying to remove that from him, like, get rid of that. Wait a second, who am I?
Become with his love for Yoko, and
primal
then
scream therapy, anything. Like, how can I get it back to like
using his celebrity to bringing about positive change in the world? And it's like you take any moment from his life and say, well, John Lennon's the guy that said the Beatles are more popular than Jesus. Right. That's not John Lennon. That's just one little part of who he is. And it's just like, that's why with songwriting, it's like so much comes through. And if you can catch that inspiration and just do it in a line, the way like Paul Simon does, or the way the great people do it, where that line brings up so much stuff. Like, she comes back to tell me she's gone. Yeah. As if I didn't know that. As
Right,
if I
right,
didn't know
right,
my own
right,
bed.
right.
You write it in a way where it's like, who is she? What is he talking about? But I know exactly what he's talking about. My whole life comes into that moment. That's when it's really, really powerful. And you can't do that when you say, I'm going to sit down and write a song together with I don't think you can.
No, I don't. I think you can in a magical situation.
Someone's
you can
really
have a real connection, and you can.
If like Randy Newman,
you can have your journal sort of with other people. Like a lot of times, I've gone to just sort of pages in my journal where I was throwing ideas down. I was like, wow, instead of like writing a guitar riff and just starting to sing random words, let me actually like take this section of this journal entry, like which was me really speaking my mind because it's between me and the page, no one else. And then see if I can put it to music, and that's like for me, that's been a really good exercise.
Well,
like instead of letting the music and the riff be the thing, like wow, let me just actually like make sure that music goes with these lyrics, and like let me rock this now.
Well, Bob Marley, that song "War" is a good example. He took like a speech from Haile Selassie,
sweet,
and like turned it into a song.
Yeah,
and
right. So I think there's both, right?
So you can do it both ways also.
It's both, and then like sometimes the music won't even be about lyrics. Maybe you'll I mean, I gotta think of like something like the Zeppelin song or something. I think of Zeppelin guitar riffs that are so integral to the song. Like what am I thinking? Is it Over the Hills and Far Away? Hey lady, you got the love I need. I mean, what would that song be without that?
Right.
Nothing. But it's like that's beautiful interconnection, really.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect song too.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing too. Like songwriter. Like for me, I call myself a songwriter. I call you a songwriter too, but you're also like a really incredible player. And someone like Eric Clapton, who's an incredible player but also a songwriter. I saw him in an interview back in the Cream era, and he was talking about words in music. And he's like, well, yeah, I'm a musician, but I can only do so much on a guitar. I can only communicate so much through the melody I'm playing on guitar. And then words, I have to like go to words to do the rest. And it's like, I mean, melodies on guitar, Jimmy Page playing ding-ding-ding, that carries a certain...
About it, right? That's a whole thing too.
Yeah.
That's an unspoken
Brian
word
Wilson,
thing.
man, think about like all the emotion he triggers just like without words.
With a toy piano.
I know, with just
or a
melody.
You know, some vocals that aren't even words, some oohs and ahs. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You know what's really interesting too about what we're talking about with the songs representing a time and a place, and it's like this concept of albums. Like there's been certain albums in my life that have completely triggered like a summer or a time or a girlfriend that I love in my life that I was with. Something that was going on in my family. I mean, there's certain albums like a Joni Mitchell Hejira record. Like it just instantly put me back at a certain time in my life. And that's
your
incredible.
Development and whatever.
I think that's dissipating a little these days because there's not so much
the album
concern.
isn't. It's the song.
Like your album, So Much More, has a great thing for me.
It's a whole package.
You've already done it for me, man. You gave me a time and a place. Like I put on your album now, and I go right back to that where I met you this summer. And hearing that song at High Sierra.
There is so much.
So it's beautiful. So you did it, man. You made an album. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because that ain't going on that much.
No, it's not. It's people are concerned with. All right, you got one song. All right, then give me 9 other to be like album tracks that are just like there to support this song.
Is it a? Are you creating?
No, I don't. There's
not. Annie DeFranco talks about it. She has a song where she sings about an album. I remember an album being a time and a place, and like she's really attuned to that.
Yeah.
Like what happened to that feeling?
Seriously, like I said it the other night. I played a show in Seattle, and I was like, like 2 like the greatest things that have ever happened to me came from Seattle. And I said 10 and Versus. And like that was like for me like Pearl Jam albums. I feel like, when you say oh, music isn't as good as it used to be or whatever, and when you get older and you say, man, like when I was coming up, that was the time for music.
Heard it,
and like when I was coming up in junior high and high school, that was a really good time for music.
Yeah.
Like when Pearl Jam came out, that was, to me, that was like the end. That was like, that was a revolutionary
sound.
And then after that, it really started the pop music really started to.
Yeah.
But it's coming back. Like John Mayer's new album, Continuum.
Yeah.
Like that's the album. That's a solid
Some really
album.
nice stuff on there.
You might not like his style or his songwriting or whatever, but the bottom line is he made a beautiful album.
That's right.
And it's
and he
like,
was conscious of the
and
album
he's conscious
concept.
of the album concept, exactly.
Beat, man, because a lot of people can't